Hello everyone. Thank you for watching the commercial ad by Western Sydney University just now. So now let us proceed with the presentation slide for Assessment 2, Advertising Through Time and Place, prepared by me, Zee, and Misako Morita. We will be looking at the ideas, analyze the social context, and key theories adopted in the ad to determine whether the ad is persuasive or not. So let's begin. This is our content. Firstly, we will explain briefly the background of the advertisement. Second, we will observe the social and cultural context of the targeted ad. Next, we will analyze the ad from the perspective of some key theories that we have learned throughout the course. So in this section, we will see how the social and cultural context intertwine with the key theories. And finally, we will come to the conclusion. So let's move on to the next slide.
The first topic is the background. Western Sydney University in Australia created this movie advertisement to welcome new students in 2015. Therefore, it could be said that their main target audiences are future students and their parents. The university brand themselves as the Unlimited, proven by the real stories of their successful graduates. In this section, we are observing the social and cultural context of this advertisement. First, according to the statistics by the Refugee Council of Australia, Australia has welcomed more than 900,000 refugees since 1901. That is how Australia represents their brand as a country providing the chance for the refugees to resettle in a safer place. As Dan Phelps and Pimentel argue, the narrative which represents the behavior and event that could happen in the real world will most likely associate it with positive emotional involvement. This advertisement's main character, Deng Adat, is Sudanese refugee survival in Australia, a defense lawyer graduated from Western Sydney University. As the ad told, he was conscripted into the army and involved in the war when he was still a child. When this advertisement was created in 2015, there was a war called the South Sudanese Civil War happening in Sudan. We could say that this indirectly replicates the devastating situation during the Second Sudanese Civil War in 1985. In this part, we are analyzing the advertisement in terms of two powers, that is to say, referent power and reward power, from French and Raven theory. Through the Deng's real story as a refugee law graduate, which illustrated his pains and gains, we could regard him as a kind of role model for future students of Western Sydney University. Therefore, at the referent power, the audience will desire to be successful like him and hope to get possibilities to protect others and people that you love, as same as him, by receiving higher education in Western Sydney University. Also, at the reward power, this ad tells us that Western Sydney University is the place that is respecting diversity and inclusiveness without any discriminations. And if you go to Western Sydney University, you will get unlimited opportunities.
Now let's move on to narrative advertising and see how transportation imagery model works in this ad. So let's focus to connective attention. The devastation states of the war actually has encouraged the people to start diving into the narrative. And Green and Brock suggest that audience members perceive bestsellers and short stories more transporting than other experimental narratives. So this is proven because people already know the states of the war and what kind of life people live in during the war. And then we move into the mental imagery. People will start generating the situation of the battles and struggles faced by the Sudanese. Actually, they try to dive into and be empathy um, towards the main character. So the main factors that mental imagery works, or how it actually influences people to have mental imagery, is through the vivid scenes being played in the ad. So the vividness and richness of the story telling actually elicit a greater sense of presence or a feeling of being there. And the other factor that influence mental imagery is if that person have the prior knowledge or personal experience, as in one of the statement given by the Zhang, Phillips, and Pimentels is this suggests that an individual's prior knowledge or personal experience actually is a significant factor in the transportation. Next is emotional involvement. So let's see how this ad actually made it possible for emotional involvement. One of the thing or factors that we notice in this ad, actually the ad is using a visual to emphasize significantly the hardship faced by the main character. In the process of unfolding the narrative, the audience will start to exhibit a positive attitude towards the main character, sympathize with his situation, and feel disgusted with the treatment he received from Sudanese government, which leads him to escape to Australia. And another factor is the music. And the song played in the ad is by Jared James, called "Do You Remember?" And through this song, it's actually telling the audience that the main character is reminiscing his hardship back then, and how he actually feel blessed to have Western University Australia supporting him throughout the journey. And this is proven because one of the author actually says that music gives to the advertisement and the object values which have attached to it culturally. And another research findings indicates that music helps cue the visuals and frames the meanings communicated to a viewer. And another author also said that exposure to audiovisual narrative leads to greater levels of cognitive and emotional involvement. So all of these elements, cognitive, emotional involvements, actually has lead to a result where the audience respect the main character efforts and achievements after seeing how he overcome the struggles. And the audience also subconsciously exhibits a positive balance towards Western Sydney University, Australia. And then it leads to belief change. So the ad has proven the importance of education as a way out of poverty and oppressions. And it has also proven that education can make something impossible becomes possible. So we have reached to the ultimate questions: whether the commercial ad is persuasive. If yes, why? After analyzing how the ads use the key theories and how it is intertwined with social and cultural contexts, we can deduce that this ad is actually an effective and persuasive ad when it first aired in 2015. It works in that time. because people could hardly buy into the narrative because the real war was happening in Sudan at the same time. As Zhang, Phillips, and Pimentel says, that the narrative which represent the behavior and event that could happen in the real world will most likely associate it with positive emotional involvement. So in this ad, the main message is Western Sydney University is a place for many people from various backgrounds. Indirectly, it says that Western Sydney is promoting diversity. The ad has successfully represents the university as an anti-racism and multicultural place to study. And subconsciously, it also benefits to Australia as a country that provide a safer place for refugee resettlement. So how about now? Is the ad persuasive enough to convince us in 2020? If you look at on the left hand side, there are articles covered story about the mistreatment of refugees amid the pandemic. They received not enough medical supplies, and some of them have died. So we can say that it is persuasive. The ad is persuasive back then. However, the ad has lost its influence to continuously portray Australia as a safer place for the refugee now, because there is too many issues that have been significantly revealed the mistreatment of the refugee in the detention centers. So then the ad is no longer persuasive. And obviously, the ad is not the strongest ad to wiping away the negative stigmas on how Ministry of Australia has mistreated the refugees in the real world. And thus, there is the tendency of people losing their trust, having a doubt, and develop on second thoughts. Perhaps it will be difficult for them to live in Australia, even though the University of Western Sydney is against discrimination. Thus, this act reduce the power to influence audience consumptions because of the revolving issues about the refugees in Australia. So in the end, subconsciously it leaves the negative stigmas around, and it is hard for people to buy into the narrative again.
This is our reference list. That is all. Thank you for your watching.